Bruce Sherman and Peter Bendix spoke to the media, and I got some things to say, and I'm joined on this podcast by Smoke and Joe Frisaro. That's all coming up on today's Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked on Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. You can find me at Jeremiah Geiger2 over on X. And thank you for making Locked on Marlins your first listen of the day, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And of course, today's episode, I am joined by the great Joe Frisaro. Joe, welcome into the show, my friend.
Jeremiah, it's fun. I love the new look, the new studio, and good luck with the show. Let's dive right in whenever you're ready.
Let's do it. First, I want to remind everybody that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Joe, Bruce, and Peter Bendix had a press conference today. This episode will be coming out tomorrow, but this is our reaction. I want to give you the floor. It was about 8 minutes long. What was your immediate reaction to the presser?
Boy, it's like there was so much, you kind of had to narrow it down. But I'm going to just probably take a little different tack than most people that heard it. I'm going to say, boy, were they throwing a lot of digs at Skip Schumacher.
Ooh.
Because if you listened, it was Clayton McCullough gave the best motivating speech ever. Bruce Sherman kind of threw a dig. Oh, we lost 100 games last year, but pretty much the same team went to the playoffs the year before. But with some pitching injuries. But blame Skip. Lost 100. Don't blame us. And then the overpraising of this excellent coaching staff, which was basically hired by Peter Bendix, not Clayton McCullough, and then all the new ways. So I thought there was a lot of subtle digs at. And not so subtle, but I'm perceptive on these things. But I think there were some shots taken at Skip Schumacher. And let's make it clear. I mean, I had a little run-in with somebody. I don't even want to give him any credit on social media, except for I can't believe somebody actually hired this guy. And that guy was constantly saying that Skip left out of loyalty to Kim. No, Skip left because he didn't want to be told what to do. He didn't want to have Peter Bendix hiring his hitting coach, pitching coach, and anybody else. And on top of that, handing him literally everything on what to do and just, keep morale up in the dugout. So that's my first message. Second thing, and we've seen this word a few days. I saw you picked up on it in a little X post you did, vibes. If you notice, vibe is the new word. It's our new buzzword. Put it up there with sustainable and all that other stuff. The vibe is palpable, the meeting, the players, the vibe. So as long as the 29 other teams and the 14 other teams in the National League don't have a good vibe, I really like the Marlins' chances in 2025.
Yeah, you mentioned the word vibes, and I was like, what does that even mean? Can you clarify? What do you mean by good vibes around camp? Camp just started, and you're already throwing the word out, good vibes. It's like, oh, it feels good. Well, sure, everybody feels good. It's baseball season, Everybody's excited to be back on the baseball field. That's not a word of substance,
Did anybody ever, I know I'm a dinosaur. Do you ever see the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Very popular, popular early 80s movie. California vibe. This guy Spicoli was Sean Penn. This other guy was kind of a slick, guy who was kind of a con man, and basically he was trying to, give dating advice to the kind of the nerd in the movie, and he basically said the line, and it's classic. He goes, "Wherever you are, pretend it's the greatest place to be," and then he gave a. Isn't this great? That is Marlins camp right now. We got 29 other teams legitimately trying to go to the playoffs. We got a bunch of kids, a bunch of new toys. We got technology. We got the second biggest weight room in baseball in the process of being built. So what do we have? vibes. Isn't this
Yeah.
great?
Oh man, that's a great comparison right there because it feels just like that movie scene you described. Because you look at the situation the Marlins are in, and I'm an optimist when it comes to the team. I want to see them succeed. You want to see them succeed, but I've been open about it. Unless they somehow overachieve, the ceiling's very, very low for this team on the field. The on-field product is just not talented enough. And when you're coming off a 100-loss season and expectations are low, you haven't done anything to improve the team except for a couple minor league signings. We're going to get into that because Bruce Sherman was talking
He's not. Hey, those aren't minor. Forget the Juan Soto deal. Let's talk about the minor league deals.
But it's like there's no accountability with the front office and ownership to the fans. And that's something I mentioned in a previous podcast is just be honest and transparent with the fan base. Let them know what's going on. I don't understand why they can't do that.
Correct. Last year, look, I've distanced myself from them right now because I'm not happy with where they are. It's not good. When they get serious, I'll get serious and go watch them again. But last year, if I were there for day one, the only question I would have asked, I can't believe it was not asked, was what's the contract status of Skip Schumacher?
Right.
Because everyone knew Skip was in a walk year, in a that lame duck year. No one asked that question. Today, no one asked when Bruce is talking about we're going to win a lot more than 62 games and we're going to win and we got all this and we're going to develop. Why didn't anybody ask, is this team a playoff contender? Make them answer that question. Because if you're not a playoff contender, I don't want to hear anything else. If you want to openly say we are here to see what we got, it took a year. We apologize for not being more transparent a year ago. And, we wanted to tear it down. We want to go a certain direction. We want to use all the technology and the new weight room. I'm working my one-arm push-ups right now. If we want to do all that nonsense, sell it. And I would be the first to give them the benefit of the doubt that, look, this is what they're doing, and now we'll measure them. But when you come out guns a-blazing, that we're looking, we're motivated, this is a chip on the shoulder team. So what happens a lot of times when you have kids, even I mean kids as no disrespect, but younger players who don't have either a lot of big league experience or just about to get some experience or prospects nearing the big leagues, there's enough pressure just to get into the big leagues and perform. You're putting this expectation on them. We're going to prove everyone wrong. You watch the Mets. The Marlins are going to be. This is going to be the ultimate, Cinderella story. This is, forget every other underdog film in the ever history. 2025 Miami Marlins. That's the new movie that everyone's going to go see. And what do you do? You get guys. This is what normally happens, Jeremiah, because I've covered more rebuilds than anyone in this market. And what happens is when you have competition for literally 26 spots now, and save a Sandy Alcantara and a few others who know they're already on the big league team, you make spring training become so important to these players to win the battle. Then the season starts. In Mets camp, Juan Soto isn't competing for a job. Pete Alonso's not competing for, Francisco Lindor and competing for spots. They're preparing for the season to go on and win as many games, and then they're hopefully trying to get to the playoffs in the World Series. What happens with these young up-and-coming teams, they come out of the gate strong, and that could be whatever, and then they hit the wall. It's like anyone who ran a marathon, they want to run a marathon with a 3-minute mile in mile one. That's how they expect to win the marathon. And then they talk about sustainable. I mean, your young players, Connor Norby is openly talking about 30 homers and then say, well, I'm not going to swing for the fences. Well, you just said you are. Whether you tend to or not. Little advice, Connor. Pump the brakes. We'll see what you are. You haven't proven you're an everyday big leaguer yet. Then all of a sudden it's like you got Bendix talking, I think he has all the ingredients to be a good defensive third baseman.
And an all-star.
Never been a good.
He hasn't all-star too.
He's an awesome. Okay, whatever.
we're
So
gonna
you
we're
know,
gonna take a quick ad break, and we'll talk on the next segment about something else. Bruce Sherman. I want to get into what he says specifically about the investments. What investments are the Marlins making on the field, off the field? That's gonna come up right after this. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million, no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. They shop, you save. Once again, joined by the great Joe Frisaro. We're digging into the press conference with Bruce Sherman and Peter Bendix. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe on YouTube, and let me know your thoughts in the comments section as we break down what was a very interesting 8 minutes from ownership in the front office. And I want to talk about the investments that Bruce Sherman was talking about, Joe. It was a little odd, to say the least, saying we're investing in all this technology and facilities. And then he mentioned the on-field product. And he said, we've signed minor league free agents. And I said, you're the owner of a major league team talking about signing minor league free agents. Everyone does that. Why are you defending that? Why are you going out there and saying that? And then he goes how we've made the most trades of any other team in Major League Baseball. Yes, you have, because you traded away everybody. So let me get your thoughts on that, because I did not like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, if you have a checklist of things you do every day, you wake up, you brush your teeth, you shower, you eat breakfast, and you go to work. They want credit for waking up, brushing their teeth, taking a shower, and eating breakfast and going to work. Like, it's almost like
it's comical.
You tell me the New York Mets don't have a front office. Like they have a front office with people who've been to the playoffs and done something. They went to the NLCS last year and they re-signed Alonso and added Soto. I mean, are they the perfect team? No. And do we expect the Marlins to spend like the Mets? No. But they act like whatever they do is so unique and so different, and 100 hires in the front office. They hired a rugby guy as their strength coach. And then they're talking about the second biggest weight room, and they talk about all this technology. I see the videos, the technology, the screen, the little pole with the little like black little satellite dish looking thing behind there. That's a TrackMan thing.
Yeah, everyone has that.
Stoneman Douglas has that. There's things on the ground. Rapsodo, Western High School has that. True North Trinity Academy has that. High school teams have the same stuff the Marlins have. And guess what happens? I talked to a former minor leaguer who's pitching coach at American Heritage. He's looking at a computer. Guy throws, spin rate, blah, blah, blah. This, that. Instant feedback.
It's not uncommon. Everyone does it.
It's happening at high school. It's not uncommon at all. And they're acting like, and there I see Peter Bendix behind, looking, they're showing one of the live BPs the other day. I saw the video. Pitch drone. He's looking. Can Peter Bendix tell you how the guy's delivery is? Can he tell you if his arm's late? Can he tell you if he gets his foot down first? Can he tell you if there's movement? Could his eyes see movement? Or is his only movement what the screen says?
Right.
Because guess what? There are a lot of teams that look at the same thing, and they got people who can tell you that part of it as well as what the TV screen says. And so, yes, they're praising this this coaching staff that's inexperienced, and everyone's doing something they've never done before. We've never had a real full time. The bench coach has never been a bench coach. The manager was a first base coach. There's no experience. They had a bunch of people say no. You're not going to hear that. The people that cover the team won't tell you that part. All the people who said no, not just where we know what happened with was Abernathy, the guy in Cleveland. He said no, and the guy at the White Sox, they both said no for the manager job. And so, what they're doing is, they're praising just the fact that they've done something, which is hire people that said finally got some people to say yes. What they need to be talking about is preparation for the season. They use the word development. Look, I don't care. Christina DiNicola at MLB.com. I encourage everyone to read her work. She replaced me there. She was my intern beforehand. Does a great job under tough situation. And she did something about something as simple as pitchers lining up basically at shortstop and taking ground balls.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it's like, okay, I saw the videos of it, and the way it looked like was the way Marlins backfield is. Field 2 is the field literally right next to the building, the main building where the players come out of the clubhouse. Field 2 is the first one there. A lot of times they do a lot of work there. It's away from fans, but now they don't let fans anywhere near anything, so I'm not sure even going to Jupiter is worthwhile for fans, because the backfields is where everyone learned and saw these players and got up close and personal. But anyway, they're there. There's a smaller field that's just an infield diamond, basically. They built that for Perry Hill. They called it the Boneyard because that's Perry Hill's nickname when Perry Hill was the infield coach. And pitchers did a lot of fielding drills on that little boneyard. Well, okay, if you got guys thrown off the mound and you got like 6 other pitchers waiting around doing nothing, if you're behind a screen and no one's really, hitting the ball, and you get a coach hitting fungos to guys at short, they're getting a little bit of work in. I don't see that as a good thing, a bad thing. I don't see it as a negative per se. I'm like, you're maximizing time. Guys are standing around doing nothing. Might as well field a ground ball and just kind of get the hands and the eyes and the footwork working. But they're doing things like that, and they're trying to come up with little ways of doing things like that. And that's all well and good, but it all comes down to preparation. And what they've done immediately, which I've noticed, is live BP from day one, which is not really uncommon on hitters seeing pitchers, because pitchers, it's a little bit different than even 5 years ago when I retired, and certainly from 20-something years ago when I was covering the 03 Marlins winning it all. It was like, guys then were going to spring training, get in shape. Guys are already in shape right now for the most part. So they get hit the ground running a little bit more. But the problem with creating this super competition on every pitch, every hit is it preparing the pitchers to get ready for the season? Or like a pitcher should just be, I'm sure they're throwing some sort of bullpens, but then I heard that they may not be throwing sides, and they're trying to come up. They're spending so much time being innovative. And I saw in Christina's story where Bendix had a quote saying, "We don't know if it'll work or not, but we have to be innovative. We have to be innovative." They've already conceded they can't win like the most of the teams, so they have to be innovative. Okay, you have to be innovative with things that you guys are putting together. The people who put together a spring training, like when Tim Wallach was here with Don Mattingly for all those years as the bench coach. Tim Wallach is as respected, should have been a manager at some point in the big leagues, amazing career. But Tim Wallach put together spring trainings workouts and who would be doing this, which groups are where. It sounds like Peter Bendix and a few people, other than Gabe Kapler in the room, who's managing the big leagues, there was very little, there's no baseball people in there, on-field people. So
Right.
They came up with this plan. How does Peter Bendix know what it takes for a pitcher to get in shape that he designs the workouts? So what do I see? Isaac tweeted out earlier, right before we came on, that, who is it, Jake Morrissey or whatever?
Jacob Marcia.
Already has no oblique. He already has no oblique.
Oh, really?
And Jesus Sanchez has an elbow. Like, okay, injuries can happen, but an oblique injury usually happens for a hitter for excessive swinging.
Wow.
It was today day one of full workouts. So how are you freaking blowing an oblique on day one?
Wow. I
Unless
didn't
you've
I didn't
been,
even see that before we got on.
unless you are overexerting in your hitting programs,
Right.
which this is the danger of this unproven. Let's see. I'm not just trying to be a dick and say everything they do I oppose, but I don't care how you do it. As the main thing is are you prepared to get into the season and go for 6 months and be strong the final 6 weeks, which is when the playoffs are all determined. And then if you're lucky enough to get into the postseason, be healthy enough and hitting enough stride to advance deep into the playoffs. That's what a real team does. They're not. This is my fear of what gets back to expectation. When you are getting the rah rah, giving the Rudy speeches, and making a bunch of fringe players feel they have to. Oh, I can win a job. I can prove Joe Frisaro wrong. I can prove all the critics wrong. The Athletic and Jason Stark, who's in the Hall of Fame, saying no one knows who we are. We'll show them. We got Aram and all the other media people who go be their little, snapping dog at anyone who disagrees with this message and sell our narrative. How are you putting these players in a position to succeed when all you're doing is just creating some stress in them where, if you're like a prospect on the Yankees, more than likely if you make the team, you're probably hitting ninth. Here, Ramirez or De Los Santos or whatever might be in cleanup from day one, depending on how things break.
That's
wide
the
open.
Good thing is that everybody is competing.
But what happens when you compete? You're giving more exertion. You're giving more this, that, and the other thing. And, now you're getting obliques. Well, they also hired their trainer only a couple of weeks before camp opened. Well, that trainer needs to know the medical history of the whole team. You need to have that infrastructure should have already been in place. And I get it. You can always look at the medical records. But, normally you want your medical staffs, your training staffs to already have been in place before New Year's. So you could kind of see, hey, maybe with this player we got to be a little slower. This, maybe how we would. But you're coming up with new ideas. Everything's a new idea, which clearly shows for all the people saying it's the Rays way, it ain't the Rays way. And which I've been telling people, Bendix didn't create the Rays way.
Yeah.
But again, they know more.
I think I do like the on-field workouts. When I saw the tape and the video of pitchers throwing live pens against batters. I like seeing Snelling get some work in. You see Ryan Weathers throwing off the mound. And I think Clayton McCullough, I think his head's in the right spot about working immediately from day one, because he knows he comes from the Dodgers. He's won a World Series. He knows what it takes to win. So he wants to put in as much work as possible. And you have to look at it from his perspective as the manager, his first time getting this managerial job. He's got a lot to prove himself. I'm sure he looks at the history of this franchise and kind of the dysfunction over the last decade, really their entire existence, apart from the World Series. And so he wants to come in and establish the culture. And I think he's trying to find this culture with working hard, especially from day one. And I like that.
Just to make it, the pitchers facing live to hitters is very common for day one.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they were doing that with Skip. They were doing that with Mattingly. They were doing that with McKeon. That stuff has been going on, just so you know. But I get your point where he needs to see guys in a little bit more of a competitive setting,
right?
To see how they tick, to see how they respond.
Right. Yeah, because it's about setting the tone, and I think McCullough has been vocal about that. Hey, we're doing this. We're not just gonna ease into spring training. So I do like that. After this quick break, we're going to discuss Sandy Alcantara quickly. There were a couple comments about him in the press conference. That's coming up next. Be sure to take Locked On Marlins wherever you go. Subscribe, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'm here with Joe Frisaro. We're going to be talking about Sandy Alcantara. The media did ask Peter Bendix and Bruce Sherman, what about Sandy Alcantara? Is he here to stay? And the responses were kind of underwhelming. There was no commitment, vocal commitment at all to Sandy, non-existent. Bruce Sherman pretty much said he's the face of the franchise. We get it. I signed him to this extension, but I'm going to let the front office handle it. And Peter Bendix, at least to me, Joe, he seemed a bit annoyed by the question. He pretty much said, look, Sandy is here for now. We don't know the future. And that was about it. So to me, I think Sandy's gone. Adios.
Well, if you look at, for one, the one thing that is the Rays' way is, and I said this the day that they got rid of Kim and brought Peter in, don't get attached to anyone. And I know there are people in media that would freak out if Sandy leaves, but don't get attached to anyone because this is what you wanted. You want somebody that, now that's part one. Part two, and the staunch analytics people who look at players as commodities and they believe in regression, age 30 is a big number for them. And Sandy's a pitcher who turns 30, I believe, in September.
I think part of it has to do with his salary too. His salary,
that's another factor to it. Obviously, if you're getting a guy, although minor league free agents are as good as big league free agents, according to the owner now. But that matters. And if you're going to be, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm all in on, look, probability is important and we're going to pay attention to that, and regression is real, and all the teams that make these signings. And Sandy's coming off Tommy John, and he's their biggest trade chip. He's also their last trade chip, meaning highly significant one. And then in fairness to Sandy, if they're not ready to win and he's healthy and performing, why are you keeping someone in prime years on a team that's a rebuild? So if you buy into this, if you're a Marlin fan who buys into all this, you should not just expect, but encourage the trading of Sandy, because you buy into the philosophy of under 30 is all that matters, and you get as much and take the human element out of it and go by probability. So there's nothing that suggests. And what is Sandy? What is Sandy already saying? I want to go deep into games. These people don't believe in 3 times through the order.
Yeah.
Why do you want a pitcher who goes 3 times into game? You know what I mean? There's nothing about Sandy that fits Peter Bendix. Nothing.
Well, because he's the throwback. You look at the throwback style of pitchers when you're going 7, 8, 9 innings, because Sandy, every time he steps on the mound, he's going for that complete game. You look back to bring up Tampa Bay again, because this is where this model essentially comes from, what they're trying to emulate. Blake Snell in the World Series goes 5 innings. They pull him. They end up losing the entire series.
Losing the game.
So that's an on-field representation of this approach, of this philosophy. Because, but then at the same time, Bendix is saying how great Sandy looks, and he's throwing 98. It's the best we've ever seen. And I immediately go, you're hyping up his trade value. That's all that is.
Correct.
That's what it is.
And that's one I'll be in agreement with Peter in this one, and I'll be in agreement with the Marlins on this point, because when you think about it, the starting pitcher, if you want to quickly equate the starting pitcher to the role of the running back in the National Football League. National Football League is a passing league. Running backs don't make the money. They don't. The fastest way to score is throwing the football. NBA became a 3-point league because if you shoot a higher percentage of threes, you can get more results than. And look at where baseball is. Do you want to pay $200 million, to a Corbin Burns? Do you want to pay 200-something million to Yamamoto or Blake Snell, or do you want to kind of create young arms that can throw 95 and above, which matters, and recycle them at 5-inning pitchers, all of them, keep them within a framework of 3 arbitration years, and then jettison them out to teams looking to win? I believe, and I'm not totally against that model. If Peter wants to go that way, I'm not totally against it. Don't get too attached to starting pitching because it breaks, and it always does. And if you're lucky enough to have enough of it, you move it for commodities and you go if you're looking at a 5-inning league for pitching, I love because the commissioner wants to try to recreate the Bob Gibson, Tom Seaver type of pitching matchups. Well, he might want it because the fans may want to see a playoff game with 2 starters, a Verlander going 9 or something. We're not that culture anymore. We got a bunch of guys that throw way too hard to get hurt way too often, and they get out of the game. If they go 6 innings, they're ready to have a statue built for them outside the stadium. So it's like Sandy doesn't fit in any category to what they're trying to do, unless. Now, I know you got press for time. I want to get out of here. I want to make this point before I shut up. Is the only way Sandy stays is if the Marlins are somehow within striking distance by mid-June or around June 1. So why is the first half so important to the Marlins? It was like last year. I love the way they throw a cheap shot saying same team, even though they didn't add to that team, and so which made the team regress. And then you basically say slow start, had to get them out of here. So they're banking on a fast start. That's why they sell April more. Like if the Dodgers go 500 in April, no one's going to be hitting the panic button thinking they're not going to the playoffs. If the Marlins are 500 in April, they're looking to trade players. So those are the 2 points I wanted to make before I shut up. But so that's why the start of the season matters a lot to these people, because it affects their direction. Will we trade Sandy? Well, if we're somewhat there, we can keep him. If we surprise and everything goes right and whatever, and then play it by year. Or if we completely suck and are way out of it, then you just look to move them. If they have a really bad April, I do the same thing they did with Arias last year, get them out of here by May and hope to get even more of a return.
Well, that's the thing. I want to see them maximize the possible return they get, because I don't think they can afford to miss on this trade. Sandy is the biggest trade chip they've had dating back to when Peter Bendix took over. I mean, in theory, he's going to get more of a prospect return than Jazz did, than, of course, Luzardo did.
Correct.
So the timing and execution of the trade is imperative. You have to hit on it, because you just can't miss. You can't afford to miss on these trades when you're the Marlins. I mean, I'm already looking at Bruce Sherman talking about the young stars and the players coming up through the system. Not all of them are going to hit, number one.
No, only a small percentage. That's every team.
That's every single
team. That's not just
team.
them. That's every team.
And when you have one more trade chip in Sandy, and he's the face of your franchise, yes, there's attachment to him. We love Sandy, but I'm supportive of him being traded at the right deal, because if it's an underwhelming deal, if it feels like a Jesus Luzardo return and the timing is messed up, then I'm going to be absolutely livid, because you can't afford to strike out on this. You just can't.
This is the tough spot they are with Sandy as well. What is every other GM these days? Most of them they don't want to give up the bank for Sandy Alcantara. So now so if you're trading him in season, you're trading him only to a handful of contenders. If you're trading him in the off season, at least 29 other teams, you might get a Pirates who I don't anticipate will be there very long. They may be a little bit of an improved team, but they're not. I don't think they're going to hang around over 162 to be a playoff team. But maybe they're like, you know what? If we could lose Skeens, we could bring in Sandy. We could kind of we could kind of make a bigger deal. So I think they're in a really interesting, if not, I don't think it's envious right now with Sandy, because I wouldn't be shocked if they feel they have to keep him a whole year. You say they have to clean up. Only Dave Dombrowski is the type of guy that would move a ton of prospects for the hope of winning it all. Now, granted, what does make Sandy's value higher Preller is Preller, but right now they're in the financial. But then again, Sandy's a bargain. Preller may part with some stuff if he felt that, because it isn't a rental. That's the thing. I should add that's the thing that will kind of make the argument that you could move him in season as well. But my thoughts.
Really quick before we get out of here, Joe, let everybody know about your Man on Second and what you do over there, and promote your channel.
Yeah.
over
The
there.
Man on Second YouTube channel is going nuts. You can see it, Man on 2ND, doing a ton of high school baseball, seeing a lot of people, a lot of good players, a lot of great videos, podcasting. I've had you on. I'll have you on again. We do a little bit of Marlins, but right now, I got a pushing 2.6 million views in a year, and that's doing high schools, and that's a lot higher than I think you'll see the Marlins YouTube channels getting right now. So I'm a businessman these days, Jeremiah, and I fish where the fish are biting.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, Joe. It's always a pleasure talking with you, my friend.
It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it, and good luck. And you're very deserving of this opportunity, and make the best of it. And whenever you need me, I'm here for you, buddy.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Marlins. Be sure to like, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Until then, guys, stay safe. Let's go fish and go Marlins.